What's hidden in the darkness of caves can turn diving adventures into a nightmare. Cave diving attracts divers to find the unexplored secrets of the Earth, but with some deadly risks. Join us, as today we will explore 3 cave diving stories that went horribly wrong. We have a story of a skilled diver who was left with no oxygen in the depths of the Devil's Eye Cave, and a story of friends who were stuck in 4,000-foot-long underwater passages. But we are already warning you about the third one, because what happened in the freezing Plura Cave might shock you. But let's start first with the Devil's Eye tragedy of Carlos Fonseca. Despite being an expert diver with years of experience, Carlos Fonseca still fell victim to the unforgiving waters of the Devil's Eye Cave. He had no idea what awaited him in the depths of the cave that he had grown to love, and this left us wondering, what went wrong? Was it an accident or a preventable tragedy? We are about to reveal the shocking truth behind his fatal mistake. Carlos Fonseca was a well-known cave diver with a love for caves that drove him to spend years learning and exploring their depths. He co-founded Great Lakes Technical Divers and was a respected figure in the diving community, admired for his fearlessness and expertise. Throughout his career, he achieved many things, such as producing the famous We Are Water project, which showcased his dedication to diving. But what was it that drew Carlos to the Devil's Eye Cave on that particular day? And what was he trying to find in its dark and mysterious waters? The Devil's Eye Cave, located in High Springs, Florida, is a fascinating underwater cave system that has garnered significant attention from cave divers and enthusiasts alike. This natural wonder is near the Santa Fe River and is part of the Ginnie Springs group. This unique cave system consists of 3 main springs: Devil's Eye, Ear, and Spring, each offering a different diving experience. Notably, the Devil's Eye Cave is a karst window where the roof over a subterranean river has collapsed, exposing the water to the open surface. As a result, the cave is approximately 100 feet in diameter at the surface and then expands to 200 feet underwater. The maximum depth of the cave reaches 50 feet, with 4 underwater passages extending from the pool under the opening, ranging from 5 to 90 feet under the surface of the water. Located near the Devil's Spring Run, the Devil's Ear Cave is a canyon-like opening that showcases the raw power of nature. Water gushes from the cave opening with a nearly fire hydrant-like force, creating a breathtaking spectacle. The cave is approximately 50 feet deep and has a maximum penetration of 4,300 feet, making it a thrilling destination for experienced divers. The other part, known as the Devil's Lips, is a narrow opening in the cave located about 100 feet from the entrance. This passage is roughly 20 feet tall by 20 feet wide and varies in size during its long upstream migration. As divers make their way through the passage, the cave narrows to only a few feet tall and several feet wide, but almost immediately opens into a more formidable cave, revealing the true beauty of the Devil's Spring system. The Devil's Spring system is a popular destination for cave divers, with its crystal-clear waters, stunning formations, and unique passageways. However, diving in the system requires advanced training and experience, as the caves can be narrow and have strong currents. The cave was discovered by early settlers, who were drawn to the area by the visible plume of water vapor rising from the surface of the river. Later on, it was suggested that it looked just like a chimney from hell. On Thursday, August 8, 2013, Carlos and his teammates were preparing for a dive in the Devil's Eye Cave, a challenging and complex underwater system. Carlos, a skilled and experienced diver, was building an 80 cubic foot aluminum tank marked O2 oxygen and Memo 20, indicating a maximum operating depth of 20 feet. This tank was an essential piece of equipment for the dive because it was supposed to carry oxygen, which is the only source of survival in the depths of water, and its proper use was crucial for the team's safety. As the team prepared to enter the cave, they made a decision to dive one at a time, with Carlos leading the way due to his experience and expertise. However, as Carlos began to prepare for the dive, his teammates noticed something that would prove to be a critical error. Carlos was about to use an oxygen bottle at a depth exceeding its safe operating limit. The oxygen bottle was rated for a maximum depth of 20 feet, but Carlos was planning to take it much deeper. Scuba divers typically use around 0.8 liters of oxygen per minute, which is independent of depth and depends on their metabolism and energy needs. This rate can vary depending on factors like physical condition, water temperature, and exertion. A diver with a high metabolism uses more oxygen than one with a low metabolism. Now, in Carlos's case, planning to take the oxygen bottle much deeper than its safe operating limit of 20 feet would have significantly increased the risk of oxygen toxicity and reduced the available oxygen supply, putting him in grave danger. Despite his teammates' concerns, Carlos assured them that he knew what he was doing, claiming that he had filled the bottles himself and was aware that they were full of air. The first 20 minutes of the dive were uneventful, with no obvious problems. Carlos and his teammates were making their way through the Devil's Eye cave system, navigating the winding passages and marveling at the underwater scenery. All of a sudden, Carlos started having seizures and eventually passed out. His teammates realized that something was wrong. They had traveled about 400 feet upstream and were roughly a third of the distance between the park bench and Hill 400. The partial pressure of oxygen in Carlos's tank was about 3.6 at a depth of roughly 85 feet, which led to oxygen poisoning. This usually occurs when too much additional oxygen is breathed in, damaging the lungs and causing oxygen poisoning. Symptoms can include coughing, difficulty breathing, and potentially death. The high partial pressure of oxygen caused Carlos to seize and ultimately lose consciousness. When Carlos's teammates saw him in this condition, they knew that something was terribly wrong. They called 911 and the rescue team acted quickly, but unfortunately it was too late. Carlos was taken to the hospital, but he was later declared dead. The cave instructor who helped with the rescue looked at the oxygen tanks and found that the single-stage bottle's oxygen level was at 98% at the time of the seizure. This discovery helped explain what happened to Carlos. At a depth of about 85 feet, the high oxygen in his tank became dangerous, leading to oxygen toxicity that mainly affected his brain and nerves, possibly causing seizures. It's important to know that the problem came from the oxygen in his tank, not the water itself. Even though Carlos was in great shape, a few critical mistakes led to his tragic death. His love for diving, once a source of joy, now serves as a warning. His story reminds us to be careful and follow safety rules so our passions don't become dangerous for ourselves or others. Now, moving on to story number 2, Tituna Cave. 2 miles beneath the Earth's surface, in the suffocating darkness of Tituna Cave, Roberta Schweisgood faced her ultimate nightmare. Every breath felt like a battle. Each heartbeat echoed a countdown to the unknown. This fascinating site is located near Arch Spring in Sinking Valley, Pennsylvania. Its entrance is a huge sloping tunnel, 40 feet wide and 12 feet high, that drops down at a 15-degree angle, inviting divers to explore its depths. The floor of this cave is mostly flat, making it relatively easy to cross. However, things can get tricky once you pass the dry point, as unprepared visitors may suddenly find themselves in deep water. The first sump, a challenging underwater passage, lies about 900 feet from the entrance. As you go deeper, a large tunnel stretches from the entrance to the sump, measuring 30 feet wide and 25 feet high. Some brave cave divers have attempted to explore further. Between 1984 and 1986, 2 divers, John Schwein and Jim Brown, ventured into the cave. They discovered a very dangerous area called the Fourth Sump, but they had to turn back due to a lack of oxygen in their tanks and large blockages in their path. On June 18, 1988, Roberta Schweisgood joined John Schwein and Jim Brown on a mission to connect Arch Spring with Tituna Cave's sinking stream. They had been planning this challenging dive for 4 years, aiming to swim through the underwater passages, which were about 4,000 feet long. Their goal was to explore the link between Arch Spring Cave and Tituna Cave. Arch Spring Cave features a long tunnel measuring 2,250 feet, consisting of 4 main parts: a deep pool, a long canal, another deep pool, and a final room. The first deep pool is 250 feet long and can be as deep as 35 feet. The canal is 850 feet long and leads to the second deep pool, which is 1,000 feet long and drops to a depth of 70 feet. That day, John went on a dive in Arch Spring to uncover the exact connection to Tituna Cave. He began his dive at 1 p.m. and swam 700 feet along the winding passage. When he reached the final chamber, he secured a new rope to a rock in the middle of the room. Then, he unwound the rope for 190 feet and attached it to 2 smaller ropes that led to different parts of the breakdown area. After John finished his dive, Roberta was waiting for him at the entrance to Sump 2. Due to the bad visibility in the cave, they had planned to do separate dives. Roberta's task was to remove the rope John had laid and measure the line's direction and depth. John exited the cave at 2:50 p.m., and Roberta entered Sump 2 to start her work. John grew increasingly concerned as the minutes turned into an hour without Roberta resurfacing. He checked his watch, and realizing it was well past the time she should have come out, he decided to search for her. He suited up, anticipating that he might find her stuck. But when he reached there, Roberta was nowhere to be found. Worried about Roberta's disappearance, John left the cave and drove to the Huntington State Police Barracks to report her missing. The authorities acted quickly, understanding the seriousness of the situation. After several hours of searching with no sign of Roberta, they contacted Bill Stone, a renowned cave diver from Maryland, at midnight. Stone's expertise in cave rescue operations made him the ideal leader for the rescue team. Meanwhile, John returned to Tituna Cave to dive the underwater passages with local divers, hoping to find if Roberta had made the link they were searching for, but she wasn't there either. On June 19th, Bill Stone and his dive team were ready and arrived at the cave by 2 p.m. They thought Roberta might still be alive in an air pocket. That night, 2 rescuers went 690 feet into the second sump, carefully checking all the side passages. The water was very cold and visibility was almost zero, making it extremely difficult for anyone to find their way out. Despite these challenging conditions, the team remained hopeful that they would find Roberta alive. However, their hopes were dashed the next morning. On Monday morning, June 20th, John found Roberta's body 10 feet from where the safety line was tied off. She was facing into the cave, stuck in a low section on the south side just below a narrow spot. Although Roberta's body was found near the safety line, it is possible that she became disoriented and swam 50 to 70 feet in the wrong direction before losing consciousness. If she found the line, she likely swam in the wrong direction before realizing that she was going further into the cave. The recovery team faced tough conditions, and it took 6 divers until June 22nd to bring her body out. The accident was likely caused by getting tangled in the line in very low visibility. An autopsy showed that there were no medical issues, making this tragedy serve as a harsh reminder of the dangers of cave diving. And finally, number 3, Plura Cave disaster. Our last story for today takes us to a cold winter morning at the beautiful Plura Cave. A group of Finnish men went diving there, ready to explore new parts of the cave, but they had no idea what was about to happen next. The Plura Cave is a limestone cave, also known as a karst cave, located in the eastern part of Rana Municipality, Nordland County, Norway. It is situated near the Arctic Circle and is known for being the deepest cave in northern Europe and the most challenging cave dive in the world. The cave was discovered in the 1990s by Norwegian divers, who began exploring its passageways and laying guidelines as they went. The cave has 2 entrances, Pluragrada and Steinugoflauget, which are connected by a narrow passage. The entrance to Pluragrada is located in a pond, and from there, the cave stretches for over 2 kilometers, reaching depths of up to 130 meters. The cave's passages are narrow and winding, with many restrictions and obstacles that make it difficult for divers to navigate. The water temperature is around 2 degrees Celsius, and the visibility is often limited due to the presence of sediment and other particles. Due to its amazing structure and geological features, this cave attracts many cave divers. Among these was a team of 5 skilled divers: Patrick, Jari Huotarinen, Vesa, and Jari Yosamaki, and Kai. The group felt confident after their autumn dive when Kai and Patrick connected the Plurager and Steinugget caves. This success inspired their February dive. Patrick was an experienced diver from that team, and he brought along his friend Huotarinen, who was excited to try the dive for the first time. The team had a complex dive plan, starting from a new entrance. They prepared extensively, reviewing every detail to ensure their safety. They traveled 15 hours from Finland to get to the site, towing a trailer packed with essential equipment. Patrick and Huotarinen cut a hole in the freezing pond and swam through the cave. After about an hour, they reached the deepest part, but when Patrick turned around to look for Huotarinen, he couldn't see him. Patrick swam back down to find him. He was stuck in a narrow passage. He was panicking and waving his light downward. In cave diving, signaling with a light is an important means of communication, especially in situations where verbal communication is not possible. When a diver signals their light downward, it typically indicates that they're experiencing difficulties or are in need of help. Patrick's heart raced as he made his way back down to Huotarinen and began to help him. After he helped him get unstuck, Huotarinen was still not feeling okay, as he was breathing quickly and switching between Patrick's breathing device and his own. Then, something terrible happened. Huotarinen swallowed water and began drowning. This situation is an example of a phenomenon known as dry drowning. When a person is in a state of extreme panic, they may experience a loss of coordination and judgment, ultimately resulting in drowning. In this case, Huotarinen's panic caused him to rapidly switch between his own breathing regulator and Patrick's open-circuit mouthpiece, creating an opportunity for water to enter his airway. When he finally took a breath without a regulator in his mouth, he inhaled water, leading to a rapid decline in his condition. Patrick watched in horror as his friend struggled to breathe. Patrick was overcome with panic, but he knew he had to calm down and think clearly to prioritize his own safety. He took a few deep breaths, trying to process what had just happened. He tried to rescue Huotarinen, but he knew it was too late. The situation was too dangerous, and he now had to prioritize his own safety. As Patrick swam away, he couldn't shake off the image of Huotarinen drowning in front of him. He felt guilty for leaving his friend behind, but he knew that he had no other choice. He was worried about the trio of divers who were following him, and the fact that they would soon stumble upon Huotarinen's lifeless body. When the second team of Kai, Vesa, and Usamaki started on their descent to the cave, they remained unaware of the unfolding tragedy happening down in the depths. With fast progress, they navigated the cave system, reaching the deepest section in under an hour. As they swam through the cave, they approached the location where the incident had occurred. Vesa, leading the group, was the first to come face to face with Huotarinen's lifeless body. He was paralyzed with shock, and his initial reaction was to panic. He started to panic and tried to pull Huotarinen out, but instead, he got stuck. He squeezed between the bone and the rock, and after 15 minutes of struggling hard, he finally got through, but he was risking his own life in the process. He had used up most of his air and now had to make an emergency ascent about 80 minutes ahead of schedule. This was a serious problem, as staying without enough oxygen for much longer could result in loss of consciousness or death. Patrick saw a light coming from the cave floor and he felt relieved. He swam down and he saw that Vesa had made it through the narrow space and past Huotarinen's body. After Patrick met Vesa, he helped him with his emergency ascent and ensured his safety. Meanwhile, Usamaki and Kai were still trying to navigate through the cave, unaware of the tragedy that had occurred. When they saw Huotarinen's lifeless body, Usamaki quickly tried to take him out. He panicked and made the same mistake as his friend had before him. Kai, swimming closely behind Usamaki, tried to calm him down as panic set in. He swam up to Usamaki, reassuring him that everything would be okay. Kai knew that he had to act quickly to save his friend, but he soon realized it was too late. As time passed, he saw Usamaki running out of oxygen and realized it was hopeless. If he gave Usamaki his air, they would both end up trapped in the depths of the cave. Usamaki's eyes were wide with fear, his face pale and sweaty. He was beyond saving. With a heavy heart, Kai made the difficult decision to turn around and swim back to the surface. He couldn't stay and watch as Usamaki succumbed to panic, slowly suffocating in the narrow passage. Kai took a deep breath and steeled himself for the challenge ahead. Kai was alone in the dark water, surrounded by nothing but his own thoughts. He had to make regular stops to avoid getting sick from the pressure change, but it was a slow and scary process. He wasn't sure if he was the only one left alive, or if he would even make it out himself. The hours dragged on, feeling like an eternity. Kai finally came out of the water 3 hours after Patrick and Vesa had already made it out. They were waiting for him and saw a light in the distance. A huge wave of relief washed over them when they realized that Kai was safe. Kai told Patrick and Vesa that Usamaki hadn't survived. The three of them were shaken by what had happened, but they were thankful to be alive. They contacted the authorities and were taken to a hospital for treatment, where police asked them questions about what happened. Recovering the bodies of Huotarinen and Usamaki proved to be extremely challenging. Initial attempts by skilled British divers failed, and officials decided that it was too risky to try again. They closed the area and banned diving, which was hard for the families and friends of the victims to accept. Despite this, the surviving divers were determined to bring their friends back. In the spring, they organized one final recovery effort. Since Kai and Vesa were still dealing with injuries and anxiety from the incident, they couldn't dive. Instead, Patrick and fellow diver Sami Pakarinen managed to retrieve the bodies of Jari Huotarinen and Jari Usamaki. This incident was a harsh reminder to respect the power of nature and never take unnecessary risks.